Hi lovelies, you're welcome to my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, you're welcome back and I appreciate. So today I'm going to be drafting this beautiful gown that you see here on my screen. So let's get started. So I've gone ahead to mark my body measurement. I rule a straight line across which I labeled my shoulder line. From my shoulder line, I came down to my bust line. From my shoulder line, I came down to my under bust line. From my shoulder line, I came down to my front waistline, also known as my front half length. From my front waistline, I came down by 3 inches to get the line that I labeled my hip line. You can call it your down waistline. Then from my hip line, I came down by 3 inches to get the basque line, okay? So for this basque line, you can make use of 2 inches, 2.5 inches, or 4 inches, depending on what you want, how basque you want it to be. Now on my shoulder line, I'm going to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2, and then I will mark my neck wideness of 3 inches. Then from that my 8 inches point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch to get the shoulder slope. So I'll go ahead and connect it this way. Now I'm going to mark my armhole circumference divided by 2, which gives me 8.5 inches. I'll go ahead and connect it to my shoulder slope like so. After doing that, I'll go ahead to rule a straight line across like this. So this line will be my chest line. Now I'll go ahead to label it my chest line. The next thing I'm going to do is to divide my armhole circumference by 2. I'll get the midpoint, and then from that midpoint I'll go in by half of an inch. And then on my chest line, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and then I'll go ahead to connect the front armhole like so. So after connecting the front armhole, I'll go ahead to mark 8 inches for the neck depth. Now you can mark 7 inches, depending on how deep you want the neck of this dress to be for you, okay? So now I'll go ahead to connect the front neck depth like so. After doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to measure my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 8 inches. I will divide it by 2, and then I have 4 inches. Now from my bust line, I'm going to mark that 4 inches all the way to my basque line, okay? Now after doing that, I'll go ahead to use my ruler and connect those points together. So this is my dart leg, okay? Now after doing that, I'm just going to label this side my center front, and then this side my side front. Now I'm going to mark half inch on my basque line beside the dart leg, and then I'll go ahead to connect the front dart like so. After doing that, I already took my bust circumference divided by 4 on my chest line. So on my waistline, I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4. I will replace the dart intake that I have there. And then on my hip line, I'm going to take my hip circumference divided by 4. I will replace the dart that I have there, okay? After doing that, I'll go ahead to connect the body point like so. So after connecting the body point, the next thing I will do is to join the two darts together like this. So I'll be able to draw the basque line, okay? Now I'll go in with my curve rule, and then I will curve it this way to the hip line at the side, okay? Now I curve it in a curving method, not a straight slant method, okay? Now go ahead to cut out this front piece. So after doing that, this is the front piece, and I'm going to be cutting it on fold. So now I'm going to be taking my side dart. So below my bust line, I'm going to come down at the side by 1.5 inches. Now I'll go ahead to connect it this way for my side dart, okay? So I'm going to be closing it. So now I will slash through the bust line to this point like this, and in order for me to close the side dart, I'm going to have to open up this dart that I have here. I'll open this up to the bust line. After doing that, I will now be able to close the side dart. Without doing that, I will not be able to close the side dart, okay? So I'll go in with my tape to tape the side dart down. So now I can cut out this dart, and this is all for the front part of this dress. So I'm going to be holding the darts of this dress like this, and you can see that I'm still going to have space where my bust will sit perfectly. Okay, but if you're not making use of side dart for this dress, there's no need for you to slash this dart open. Okay, now to cut out the back pattern, I've gone ahead to take my body measurement, and then I take out 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance. So I'll go ahead to label it my zipper allowance. So now I roll a straight line across, which I labeled my shoulder line. From my shoulder line, I came down to my bust line. From my shoulder line, I came down to my back waistline. So your back waistline and your front waistline is not the same. So go ahead to measure so you know the difference. Okay. Now from my back waistline, I came down by 3 inches to get my hip line. From my hip line, I came down by 3 inches to get my basque line, just like I did for the front pattern. Okay. Now I'm going to be taking my measurement from my zipper allowance line, so take note of that. Now I'm going to mark 8 inches on my shoulder line, which is my shoulder measurement divided by 2. Then I'll make use of 3 inches for the neck wideness. While on that 8 inches point on my shoulder line, I'll come down by 1 inch to get my shoulder slope. Now I'll go ahead to take my armhole circumference divided by 2 from my shoulder slope point. I will mark the point there, and then I'll go ahead to connect it this way. Now after connecting it this way, I'll also rule a straight line across like so to get my chest line. So now I'll go ahead to label this line my chest line. The next thing I'm going to do is to take my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll mark the point on my chest line, and then I'll go ahead to connect the back armhole like so. After doing that, the next thing I will do is to take my nipple to nipple point divided by 2, which gives me 4 inches. After dividing 8 inches by 2, I will mark the point all the way from my chest line to my basque line, and then I'll go ahead to connect the points together like so. After doing that, and from my chest line, I'll come up by 2 inches just to extend the dart line. Okay, now I'll go ahead and extend it this way. The next thing I'm going to do on my basque line, I'm going to mark half inch on both sides of the dart leg. Okay, and then I'll go ahead to connect the back dart like so. So after connecting it, the next thing I will do is I already took my bust circumference divided by 4 on my chest line. I'm going to take my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll mark the point there, then I'll replace the dart intake that I have there. Okay, and then I will take my hip circumference divided by 4. I'll replace the dart intake that I also have there. Okay, now I'll go ahead to connect the body points together like so. So after connecting the body points together like so, the next thing I will do is to join these two darts leg together like this, and then I'll go ahead to draw the basque line. Okay, just like I did for the front piece. So after doing that, on the zipper allowance area on the waistline, I'll go in by half of an inch, and then I'll go ahead to connect it this way. Now this is to avoid any zipper bulge. So I'm going to be cutting off this particular side. Okay, so for the neck depth, you can decide to make it a deep neck depth, but for mine, I'm making use of a high neck depth. Okay, now I'll go ahead to come down by 1.5 inches for the back depth, and then I'll go ahead to connect the neck point like so. I'll also extend that line to the zipper allowance area like this. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and cut this out. Okay, so after I'm done cutting the back piece, this is the zipper allowance area here, and then I'm going to be tracing the dart on the fabric when cutting on my fabric. Okay, I'll trace the darts on the fabric, that is the back dart. Then when I hold the dart, I'll hold it up to that point there. Okay, now this is all for the front and back of this dress. Okay, so to cut this on your fabric, remember the front we are cutting on fold, so my material is on fold. Now go ahead and place it this way. Then I'm going to cut the neck area with half of an inch, the shoulder with half inch, the armhole with half inch. Then at the side, remember I didn't add my body allowance when drafting it, so I'm just going to add 2 inches at the side. Okay, so just watch what I'm doing. I'm going to add 2 inches at the side all the way to my hip line, I mean to say. Then I'll go ahead to connect it like so. Now at the down, I'm going to add half inch allowance now. Okay, also at this part here, which is the dart, I'm going to add half inch stitching allowance. So just watch closely what I'm doing. Okay, this is just me teaching you or showing you how you can cut this on your fabric. Now I'm going to use my chalk to mark the point where I'm going to hold the dart up to. Okay, now this is it for the front part. So for the back part, I'm going to be cutting times 2 of it on the fabric. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut half inch on the zipper allowance, half inch on the neck part, half inch on the shoulder, half inch on the armhole area, half inch at the down. Okay, now on the side, I'm going to repeat the same thing that I did for the front side. Okay, so after marking the half inch at the down, the next thing I'm going to do is to trace out the dart on the fabric, just as you see me doing. I'll also mark where I'm going to hold that dart up to on the fabric with my chalk. Okay, now the next thing I'll do is to notch the point. Okay, so I'm just going to notch where I'm going to hold the dart from here. Okay, so this is it for the back part. So for the gathers of this dress, it is two step. Okay, now you can make use of 3 yards material or 4 yards material, depending on what how full you want it to be. Okay, so now the actual length of your gown should be the first step that is longer. Okay, now you're going to measure your half length and then plus the 3 inches that we came down by to get the hip line. That is what you will minus before getting the full length of your gathers. And this is all for this tutorial. I'll see you in my next video, but for now, bye and thanks for watching.